Right now, somewhere in the world, a cat is sleeping curled beside a human. This exact scene is happening in Tokyo, in London, and in hundreds of millions of homes simultaneously. This intimate moment of cross-species companionship feels like the most natural thing in the world, but it actually shouldn't be natural at all. We broke the wild spirits of horses, and we actively bred dogs to fit our exact needs. We chose all the other domesticated animals, but cats were entirely different. Cats? The truth is, nobody really domesticated cats in the traditional sense. Roughly 10,000 years ago, they simply showed up and decided that living near human settlements wasn't such a bad idea. The most bizarre part of this arrangement is that they barely changed physically throughout this immense span of time. A domestic house cat's skeleton is nearly indistinguishable from its ancient wild ancestors. Unlike dogs, who rely heavily on us, cats could walk away tomorrow and survive perfectly well in the wild. They simply do not need us, yet they choose to stay. How did these small, solitary hunters transition from prowling the ancient deserts of the Middle East to sleeping peacefully on our pillows? Our story begins 10,000 years ago, in a changing world where humanity was just about to invent civilization. The African wildcat, scientifically known as Felis sylvestris libica, had absolutely no intention of ever becoming a domestic pet. They were apex predators in their own weight class, perfectly evolved hunting machines completely uninterested in human beings. Astonishingly, out of dozens of small cat species globally, only this specific one ever walked the path of domestication. The reason this specific species became domesticated wasn't because they were cuter or friendlier than the rest. It was entirely due to their geographic location and their unique behavioral flexibility. As the last ice age ended, expanding grasslands across the Levant provided the perfect environment for them, with their sandy coats making them nearly invisible against desert rocks. They possessed a crucial behavioral advantage. Unlike other aggressively territorial wildcats, they were willing to tolerate the presence of others at a safe distance. They were cautious but not paranoid, an evolutionary accident that gave them the perfect temperament to coexist with us. Everything changed irreversibly when human ancestors in the Fertile Crescent discovered agriculture. For the first time, humans stopped following their food, settled in one place, and began building permanent villages. However, the farmers' necessity to store tons of grain in granaries to survive the winters birthed an unforeseen and devastating problem. These massive piles of gathered seeds created an evolutionary jackpot for rodents. Early farmers tried everything, including dogs, but dogs proved to be terrible at catching fast-moving mice. What the early human settlements desperately needed was an evolutionary specialist, a predator equipped with lightning-fast reflexes and exceptional night vision. The human granaries created an artificial concentration of prey, providing a buffet that could sustain a dense population of wildcats. Humans quickly noticed a remarkable correlation. The settlements where these wildcats hunted had significantly fewer mice and much safer grain stores. Consequently, the humans let the cats stay, offering scraps and creating safe spaces for them to raise kittens. Yet, unlike sheep or dogs, humans were not actively controlling or breeding them. Within the population of African wildcats, there was natural variation in temperament that guided their evolutionary trajectory. While the terrified ones fled, a small percentage of naturally less fearful cats were able to hunt right at the edges of bustling human activity. These bolder cats thrived on the abundant mice, survived better, and passed down their human-tolerant genes to their offspring. Through a process biologists call self-selection, cats evolved to live alongside humans over hundreds of generations without ever developing the eager-to-please pack bonding seen in dogs. For a very long time, researchers mistakenly believed that cats were domesticated much later, roughly 4,000 years ago. However, an extraordinary archaeological discovery on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus completely rewrote the history of cat domestication. Archaeologists unearthed a 9,500-year-old human grave that contained the carefully placed complete skeleton of a cat alongside a person. Since wildcats could not reach the isolated island naturally, someone had to have brought that cat intentionally by boat. This profound burial proves that cats and humans have been partners since the very dawn of the agricultural revolution. One might logically assume that transforming a fierce, Solitary predator into a willing human companion would require massive wholesale genetic rewiring. Yet when scientists sequenced the domestic cat genome, they were absolutely shocked. The genetic difference between your house cat and a truly wild feline is incredibly minimal, restricted to changes in maybe 13 key genes. These subtle genetic tweaks primarily adjusted the brain's fear center, slightly dialing down the panic response to novel situations and human presence. Evolution didn't rewrite the entire genetic code. It merely turned down the fear dial. Fascinatingly, despite domestication, cats retained almost all of their pristine, wild hunting abilities. Today's house cat is still a near-perfect predator, possessing the exact same reflexes and hunting instincts as its ancient ancestors. While humans selectively bred other animals into dramatically different forms, cats domesticated themselves by merely tolerating our presence. Their independent, predatory nature remained highly advantageous near granaries. Natural selection preserved the wild hunter, while just tweaking the fear response enough to allow proximity. By 3000 BCE, massive granaries built along the Nile to store wheat and barley attracted an absolute plague of rats and mice. The cats didn't just catch mice. They stood as the only barrier preventing Egyptian civilization from collapsing into starvation. The Egyptians noticed this immense value and quickly elevated cats from practical workers to divine beings. Bastet, originally a fierce lioness goddess, gradually transformed into a cat-headed deity representing protection, fertility, and joy, perfectly mirroring the cat's role in society. The Egyptian reverence for cats reached astonishing heights, evidenced by subterranean galleries containing literally millions of carefully prepared cat mummies. For the ancient Egyptians, offering a mummified cat to Bastet was considered a precious gift that embodied the goddess herself. Cats were fiercely protected by laws. Killing a cat, even accidentally, resulted in the death penalty, and families mourned their passing by, shaving their eyebrows. Wealthy Egyptian families adored them so much, they pierced their cats' ears to adorn them with gold jewelry, and the government strictly banned their exportation. Despite Egypt's fierce export bans and border guards, Greek and Phoenician traders saw the undeniable value of cats and smuggled them out on trading vessels. As the Romans built their massive empire, they desperately needed a solution to protect their vital logistical grain shipments from rat infestations. Cats rapidly became standard equipment on Roman naval vessels, because the Romans viewed cats purely as highly practical working animals rather than divine deities. This pragmatic approach successfully globalized the domestic cat across the entire Mediterranean. Simultaneously, cats journeyed eastward along the ancient Silk Road, traveling with merchants to protect grain at trading posts all the way to China. Cultures in China and Japan eventually embraced these exotic felines, integrating them into their art, philosophy, and aristocratic courts. In a completely different direction, expanding Vikings brought cats aboard their wooden longships to safeguard their rations from rats. Adapting to harsh northern winters with thicker coats, cats had successfully spread across 3 major continents by the year 1000 CE. As the medieval period descended upon Europe, the independent nature of cats began to look highly suspicious to a superstitious society. The turning point arrived in 1233, when Pope Gregory IX issued Vox in Rama, a papal decree officially linking cats to devil worship and heresy. This deadly circular logic triggered horrific, systematic massacres, where millions of cats were tortured, burned, and thrown from buildings during festivals. The ancient bond forged in the Fertile Crescent was nearly shattered entirely by centuries of relentless, fear-driven persecution. The persecution of cats yielded a cruel and devastating irony when the Black Death swept through Europe, spread by fleas living on unchecked rat populations. Humans had systematically slaughtered the very specialists, perfectly evolved to control the rodents carrying the plague. To survive, urban cats became incredibly elusive, retreating into walls and cellars, relying solely on the secret mercy of individuals who defied the church to feed them. This dark era enacted a reverse natural selection, favoring the most cautious and suspicious cats, thereby strengthening their survival instincts. As the Renaissance dimmed the flames of superstition, the age of exploration pushed wooden ships across vast unknown oceans, and ships' rats were a catastrophic threat to rations. Cats effortlessly adapted to the swaying decks, becoming essential crew members who ensured sailors didn't starve. They disembarked in the Americas, Australia, and remote Pacific islands, multiplying rapidly in ecosystems that had never known a feline predator. Through maritime trade routes, these working passengers achieved an unprecedented global expansion that no other domesticated animal could match. The Industrial Revolution compressed humans into dense, brick cities, permanently altering the feline role from barnyard worker to indoor companion. As people grew lonelier in crowded tenements, the cat transitioned into a sweet-tempered roommate, sharing beds and hearths. In 1871, the first official cat show at London's Crystal Palace revolutionized their status, putting them on pedestals and establishing formal breeds. Victorian culture began treating them as cherished individuals with inner lives, leading to the invention of commercial cat food, indoor litter boxes, and pose studio photography. As human populations exploded into massive vertical megacities during the 20th century, cats perfectly filled the modern urban ecological niche due to their small size and quiet nature. The rise of the internet transformed these expressive creatures into global digital icons, providing shared humor and emotional comfort to millions of screens worldwide. Modern science confirmed what owners always knew. Interacting with cats actively raises human oxytocin levels, proving a mutual, measurable biochemical bond. Online communities now drive rescue efforts, saving countless cats and shifting the human-feline alliance into an era of deep awareness. The mysterious creature currently purring beside you is the living culmination of a 10,000-year negotiation between independence and intimacy. They never bent their bodies to carry us or altered their minds to obey our every command. Instead, we slowly molded our lives to accommodate what they would tolerate. You do not command a cat. You share a space with a tiny, opinionated predator that has chosen to vibrate with contentment in your lap. That steady purr is the sound of an ancient truce, echoing the profound truth that we did not choose them. They chose us.